Hi everyone, welcome back, and in this video I'll be giving you some information on capturing scenarios in user stories, and that is using the given when then format. So let's get into it and go further and see what it is. So the given when then, this is a way to represent and write down tests or scenarios and specifying the system's behavior when a user interacts with it at a particular scenario or condition. Okay, so it's just a way that you represent and write down tests or scenarios that users or the system might come across when the system is being built. So as part of the behavior driven development, okay, it's called the BDD. It's an approach which was developed by Daniel Terhorst North and Chris Matz. Okay, so if you look at the given when then format, okay, the very first part of this is the given. And the given consists of, or it specifies, the existing condition or the present scenario or precondition, okay, that exists before something is being done. And the when condition defines the action that is being done, okay. And the then condition, it specifies the expected outcome or the reaction to a particular action that has been done. So this is basically the given when then. So all you need to keep in mind is when you specify the given condition, it needs to be some precondition or the system where the current state of what the system is in. And when you give the when statement, it has to be the action that is being done, and then is nothing but the expected outcome that needs to be executed based on the action which was being done. So these are the three sections of the given when then. So now let's look at it with a user story, because what I wanted to convey in this is, one is this particular given when then and how do you write the given when then, and how can you apply this in user stories. Now when you take a very regular user story, okay, for example, as a user I should be able to view my transactions so that I will be aware of all my incomes and expenses. So this is a user story. Now for this user story, sometimes the general way of writing the acceptance criteria would be, the user should be able to view list of transactions in my transactions section. So this can be an acceptance criteria and it's valid. But what I find is when you write the acceptance criteria and you specify the different scenarios, it even gives you an opportunity to check for the different scenarios and how the system needs to be developed in order to handle these scenarios. So now for example, when I use the given when then, I come across a first scenario, which is the user has some transactions. So at that time, given the user has some transactions, when the user clicks on My Transactions tab, then the user should be able to view the list of transactions. So this is one scenario. Now the scenario specifies when the user has some transactions. Now this makes you think, what happens if the user does not have any transactions? Then what is to happen? So at that time, you come across the second scenario. So the second scenario is the user has no transactions. So how is the system going to react to this? And that's where you write another scenario. So given the user has no transactions, and when the user clicks on the My Transactions tab, then the user should be able to view the message No Transaction History. So now you came across this second scenario. Think of another scenario. Sorry, this is the third scenario, but I've missed it and put it as the second. So what happens when the user has some transactions, but the system, there's some problem to fetch the data. So you come across another scenario saying that transactions fail to load. So what happens? Given the user has transactions and the user clicks on My Transactions tab, and when there is a problem in fetching the list of transactions, then the user should be able to view the message, fail to fetch transactions, try again. So if you see in the previous video when I took a video on acceptance criterias, I would have mentioned that given when then statements, you can have multiple conditions which is defined using the AND operator. So that's what I have used in this particular scenario. So all I'm coming to say is, when you write user stories, when you work with these scenarios, it's much more easier for you to identify the different scenarios that the user or the system might come across, and how these scenarios are going to be handled by the system. Because if you look at all this, every scenario is valid and the system needs to handle this. And another important thing is, when you mention in detail all these scenarios, developers on the other end, they would be able to take into consideration all these different scenarios, and they would be able to write down their test cases when they develop. So those test cases, based on that, they would be able to develop the system in a way where it will handle all these scenarios. And it not only helps the developers, it also helps the quality analyst or the testers for them to do their testing and to check for other scenarios. Now, I'm not saying these are only the scenarios that will exist. Of course, when you give this to a tester, they would come up with n number of test cases. But it's up to the business analyst to come up with at least all the high level and main scenarios that needs to be handled when developing, and also needs to be taken care by the system. So it's always useful to write user stories in this detailed format. It will definitely be useful and helpful for the team. So try using this format and see how it works for your team also. So that's it for this video. I hope that this was informative. If you liked this video, please do give this a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do subscribe, and also do share your feedbacks. Thank you.